Projects Committee meeting for June 22nd. I will hereby call the roll. Committee members. I am present. Budget Director Mark Cornell.
Present.
Controller Kevin Hardwick.
Here.
Chair Tim Myers.
Here.
Majority Leader John Gilmore. Finance Management Chair Mike Shoyan. Minority Leader John Mills.
Here.
Deputy County Executive Lisa Schmier.
Here.
Commissioner Bill Geary.
Present.
Commissioner Dan Castle.
Here.
Commissioner Troy Schinzel.
Here.
County Attorney Jeremy Toth. We do have a quorum, we only needed 7. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the June 8, 2026 meeting, a copy of which was provided in your packet. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to review it, take a look at it, it seemed appropriate.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion approved. Second. We have a second. Motion approved from the Budget Director Cornell, second from Legislature Chair Myers. All in favor signify by stating aye. Aye. All opposed? Carries unanimous. Okay, we have a big day of roads today, so.
And bridges.
And bridges. And whatever else they decide they want to build on the roads. So the floor is yours, Mr. Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner.
Certain number of remote. Yeah, I think.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right, I will get right into it with our first request. Our first request always is our capital overlay request. This is for maintenance and the total of $9 million for our capital overlay program. These are the roads that are improved through projects in our maintenance district for rehabilitation, maintenance, and reconstruction. You'll often hear us talk about mill and overlay projects, cold in place recycle projects, hot in place recycle projects. These are the road resurfacing projects that we accomplish every year. Our goal is always to resurface, 100 miles or so every year. This is all CHIPS reimbursable allotment, and similar to what we've requested in the past.
Any questions on this one? Or 2?
Our second request is similar. It's the capital overlay engineering. These are the ones that are designed and are bid out. You'll often hear us talk about overlay A or overlay B on our more heavily trafficked roads that need a little bit more work. We are requesting 10 million. Some of the ones that are under consideration to receive this funding would be Ridge Road from Abbott to Seneca. This area needs some drainage work and resurfacing. Also, Eggert Road from the City of Buffalo line to Main Street. It's got a road score of 5. Sorry, I apologize. Ridge to Abbott has a road score of 6. Eggert has a road score of 5. We also have French Road from Union to Transit would be under consideration. That's got a road score of 4. Or any other capital overlay that could be considered with that funding, which would include resurfacing, drainage improvements where needed, safety, and inspection.
I have a question. If this was approved at $10 million, what are we looking at? One project, 2 of the project?
This would likely be, it wouldn't be all of them that are listed. My understanding is the ones that are closer to ready would be Eggert and French. So potentially looking at 2.
Any other questions?
And just to set the tables too, I think our CHIPS, the whole emergency winter weather recovery CHIPS, pave over potholes is for reimbursables almost $21 million.
You get a chance, can you send me the new letter?
Yes.
Our next request is one that is probably very familiar to a lot of people in this room. This is for construction of Eggert and Colvin. If you're familiar with this stretch, this is between Twin Cities Highway and Colvin Boulevard. It is a short stretch and an expensive one. It's 0.42 miles. This is the one that has a significant amount of concrete underneath. Also has 6 lanes going across there. It's at the junction of the I-290 ramps. We've done some emergency joint repairs that were made, but the pavement continues to deteriorate and construction is necessary to improve road conditions. The design is complete, so it would be ready to bid upon receipt of the funding if we receive it.
Would this be replaced with all blacktop, or is it, we also do concrete?
This one would be all blacktop, right?
So it'd be a mix, I think, concrete and blacktop. So concrete, I think it's almost 30 years since it was last
Yeah.
rehabilitated.
I mean, they'd have to remove all of it, but I think they'd be able to put,
New York State DOT, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, this one moved up quite a bit from last year. Is it because of the deterioration?
Yeah, and New York State DOT is doing the north section basically from the 290
Okay,
just north.
yeah.
We only own, like Karen said, the 0.3 of a mile.
Yeah.
But because it's 6 lanes, comes in almost, a little over a mile. But DOT is doing Twin City Highway all the way north this year.
Any other questions on this project?
the next request is for our highway safety improvements. Our highway safety improvements funds are used to replace our damaged guide rail and correct and recognize highway deficiencies and upgrades to highway appurtenances and anything that is a hazard. For your reference, we have 157 miles of guide rail. We're constantly replacing it. Any car accident that happens or any damage that happens to the guide rail, we're replacing it and typically use all that we are allotted every year for these improvements.
Any questions? Okay.
Next request is for vehicle and equipment replacement. This is the same amount that we requested last year. As you know, we are looking to replace at least 5 of our plow trucks every year. Those costs have gone up a little bit. Our plow trucks are $300,000 each. We try to get a new one for each maintenance district. Then we have to outfit them with sanders that are $25,000 each. We mentioned the paint rig in here for our striping, in-house striping. That is operational this year, but it's a matter of time before it needs to be replaced. That cost can be over $700,000 for that piece of equipment. We've got some specialty equipment that needs to be replaced across the maintenance districts. I'll reference some of them. We have a cat dozer that's as old as 1991 in our Clarence district. That's a $250,000 piece of equipment. A road widener, which we've used in one of the districts. We're looking to get for one of the northern districts that they often use to widen the roads. That's another $250,000. We are looking at a 20-ton roller to replace, again, another 30-year outdated one in the Clarence district. That's over $200,000. We're also considering purchasing a grapple truck. We are always trying to identify opportunities for grant funding. We were recently successful partnering with DEP for grant funding that got us a horizontal wood chipper that we're going to be able to purchase with funds in 2027. I bring up the grapple truck because that's something that we'd be able to get a lot of use of, knowing that we have this piece of equipment that we could move around the county. We often have to deal with fallen trees, windstorms, and helping out, some of the towns. So that request is in there as part of the total request for equipment.
How many actual trucks that we use for snow plowing or construction do we have?
We have, I believe it's 41 when it comes to our plow trucks that we end up converting over for construction season. That's our full fleet across the 5.
And what are we normally using during the winter during buses per district at any one time?
It
5,
depends on the
6?
district. The larger districts will have 9 trucks. Some of them will have 6 trucks. It depends on which district it is, but that gets us to the total of the 41.
There's, I think, a total of 36 plow routes, but not every district is equally balanced. Harlem and Clarence probably have the least, but they have the 5 lanes with between McKinley, Maple, some of them, so it kind of doubles up. If you go by plow routes, it's a little deceiving, is what I'm trying to say. But we usually have 2 or 3 trucks in reserve.
Yeah.
So to rotate in if some breaks. And then they have the oldest trucks they use for snow ditching, ditch projects that they don't have to, there's 2 per district.
And I think our oldest ones are as old as 2011.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any question we do with the, to trade in the older trucks and plows, when you buy a new one, or do you repurpose it for something else?
Typically they're repurposed for like what we call a mud truck, you know, if it's depending on the functionality of it. And then try to, you know, as we have to get rid of them, replace them, but we'll downgrade it for what its purpose is.
Any other questions? Okay,
Our next request is for federal aid Bridge New York construction funds. The total cost is $11,760,000. The county share would only be $2,432,000. The Bridge New York projects for construction are Boston State Road Bridge, Glenwood Bridge over Graff Brook, Glenwood Bridge over Sprague Brook, Neal Road Bridge, or any other federal aid or Bridge New York project. They're all in various stages of deteriorated condition and need replacement. They have been awarded through Fed Aid or Bridge New York, and according to the condition assessments, they're in design in 2026, and depending on which bridge they would be bid either in 2027 or 2028, and depending on how much funding we have.
Could you discuss real quickly just the process for determining which bridges are going to be included? Because I know a certain amount of that is going to be dictated by the feds, and which ones that you've submitted for are going to be funded, and there's often a lot of lag involved with that.
Yeah, so we submit the eligible ones for the Bridge New York funding, and got, I think the last round, did we have 7 that were approved?
Correct.
Yeah, 7 that were approved. That's based on where it's located, but also the condition that it's in. Bridge ratings go from 1 to 7 based on their condition. So 7 would be a brand new one. The ones that you see in 3 to 4 range are in severe deterioration, or maybe they're a bridge that has received a red flag and we have to reduce the load posting or even maybe close it down because of the deterioration.
Bridge New York's typically, there's an MOU that we typically can only get awarded 4. This last round, New York State DOT was sitting on a large amount of Fed aid funding. Okay. So they asked for more candidates, and every candidate we sent in got selected.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. And then the new federal authorization that may take place in October 1st has funding streams specifically for bridges in counties that don't have to go through New York State DOT anymore. We could go right to big stuff, right? Federal highways. So bridges is a big focus, I think, in the next transportation.
Go ahead.
so how many bridges, if we were to approve the county share of 2.4 million, could we do?
That would include, let's see, the 1, 2,
I think there's 4 there.
Because you have,
yeah,
Phase
say
1,
it's
phase 2.
4, because we're looking at over 2 million, I would say, per bridge.
So you're only gonna build.
Yeah. Total bridge in New York is like 12, almost 12 million, 11 million.
Yeah.
So if the full amount was approved for phase 1, pretty much every one of these bridges would be done.
Correct.
And then phase 2, are there other ones in design at this point or no?
Yeah, there's another.
Yeah,
Like 6.
I think there are 6, yeah.
I'd have to double check. 5 or 6 are in design. 2027's capital request is gonna be much higher. That's where we're hopeful the Fed aid transportation, just for bridges, I'm saying, much higher. Because all those Bridge New York, where 90% of the funding comes from the state. That's a nice thing with Bridge New York.
Where are you in terms of the projects approved last year for Bridge New York? It was, obviously same idea, which was about $11.5 million of federal dollars through the state, very low amount of county share dollars.
And so, Fort Rock Bridge is currently under construction. I believe that was that was totally 6 million. We were talking Bridge in New York. North Branch and County Road projects aren't closed up yet, but most of the roads are done. There is Dennis, East Eden, and Marshfield. Those are both Bridge New York.
Sharp, yeah.
Sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sharp Street's the next one that's currently under construction. Goodrich Road Bridge is gonna be bid in 2027, but construction in 28. It's at Venice, East Eden, Marshfield. Road Sales Plank, Concord, and Ketchum, Baghdad. Those projects will be bid in 2026, late or early 2027.
Okay, so basically, you're saying all the ones that were discussed, last year for approval are either getting started or, getting bid out.
Correct. And we purposely delayed bridge bids till the fall,
Mhm.
because typically it's either rolled steel beams that need to be manufactured and the lead time is minimum of 6 months. But now even on the precast bridge structures, used to be a 90-day lead time, has grown, because there's not a lot of casters anymore in the state, has grown from a 90-day to almost 4 months.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
So it's just, we bid it out in October generally so that they can start construction early spring. And it's usually done within the year, bridge construction.
Mr. Minority Leader.
How many bridges do we have in the plan?
I don't have there's varying degrees of flags. There's the red flag that needs a quicker response, and you've got yellow safety flags or safety PIA flags. I do believe, and Bill can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think at one point we had determined that we had 25% of the bridges that were structurally deficient, determined as, indicating that would need replacement or repair of our whole inventory. But I can get you the information on the flags.
Usually there's a top 25 list every year.
Yeah.
We have about 290 bridges greater than 20 feet. And then 400 large structures every year, or 108 large culverts, which
We've got
could be
some on the
classified as a
slide.
small bridge.
Thanks.
The only last question I have is, so when all of these projects are determined, through this process with the state and the feds, in the scenario where, the county doesn't, fund the total amount you're requesting, how do you determine like which bridges may fall off of the priority list? And do those just kind of sit in queue? Are those like pre-authorized by the state and fed that could be done the following year? Or do those like, it's either we fund them this year or we move on?
That is a little different because it's on the transportation improvement plan and then the New York State Bridge and Airports. If they don't get funded, we could jeopardize losing that federally funded because then DOT will pull that and put it somewhere else. It's not built that authorized.
Okay, so generally speaking, like these, either Bridge New York or specifically the federal aids, the general, request is the total amount requested versus, some issue where, maybe you only get a portion of the amount requested.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I know the next one's about bridges too.
Yep. So the next one's for federal aid bridge preservation construction. Request is for 1.5 million. The county share would be 350,000. This is to fund construction for bridge preservation projects that receive federal aid funding and includes work like bridge washing, bridge sealing, our deck repairs, joints, painting, and substructure repairs. We've recently talked a lot about the Maple Road Bridge. This would be a project that falls under this request for our 2026 money when you're replacing a wearing surface or bearings or substructure repairs to concrete, things like that. This is a regular request that we have in every year and use all of it throughout the county on various bridges.
I would just say for this one, going forward, is it possible that for all the existing projects that sort of fit into the federal aid bridge preservation construction, can we get a list of sort of where the status is on all of those? And mainly because I know, in the last question you had answered a bunch of these with Sharp, Goodrich, Dennis, Eden Road, Marshfield, and so on. Just noting that there is a significant amount of funding that has not been spent over the last several years. Not to say it's not in process, but it would be nice to have a specific sort of status update of like where those all sit.
Yeah, we can do an overall bridge status.
Great.
The next request is for preservation of bridges and culverts for construction for the repair and rehabilitation of flagged bridges and culverts. We're requesting $350,000. This project funds the construction of repairs and rehabilitation of structures that must be completed based on our bridge inspection reports. We own 296 bridges, 284 vehicular and 12 pedestrian bridges, and 486 small highway bridges. So basically when we, get a red flag or hear that a bridge joint was hit by a plow or something that needs to be repaired very quickly within the 6-week time frame, this is the money that we use to make those repairs.
And Mark, just to anticipate your question too, a lot of that money, which dates back almost to 2017, those funds, because it can be used on large culverts, the funding from this would group together those, what we call smaller balances, $17,000 to $50,000.
Okay.
Were rolled in, so our ask is a lot less because it funded the construction of large culverts,
Gotcha.
the preservation of large culverts.
On this, the flag bridges and culverts, can you just quickly give me sort of an example of like, you had mentioned the sort of red and yellow flags, like what are examples of like how that gets determined?
That's New York State DOT inspects all our bridges.
So they're, depending on what kind of bridge it is, they're inspected every other year or every year. And based on that, when those inspections are done, if there's something that they see that is deemed a red flag, they notify our department right away and essentially put us on notice with the DOT that it needs to be addressed within, 6 weeks, or if it's something that needs to be addressed immediately, then it's addressed.
And that could be, I don't know if you travel through West Seneca, but over in Indian Church, in Union Road over Casanova Creek, that had bearing failure, so 4 lanes of Union Road is down to 2 lanes right now. That was an immediate red flag, but they were able to assess the situation, open half the bridge to traffic. But the repairs have to be done under our current load, so that's where some of these repairs can apply to the vertical down stuff on the substrate.
Okay, so the red flags require
Within
immediate.
24 hours.
Okay, what about the yellow flags?
It's all done by inspection,
Yeah.
and we need a bridge engineer to do a lot of weight and load calculations. The load flags might be something, the guide rail up there, like a handrail piece is broken or bent up from a car accident. You have a little bit of time, but it's a flag that has this safety issue, but it's not impairing that the bridge is going to be compromised.
Okay.
How much could you do for $350,000?
Quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, it depends on, we never know what the issues are gonna be that year, whether it's, fixing a bridge joint, replacing a bridge joint. It could be a deck repair that's urgent, there could be a hole in the deck sort of thing.
You won't repair a runaway propane truck down.
No. But
No.
the 350 is the county share, it's 1.1 million, I think, from federal share, right? It's the each million.
Remember that one?
Yeah. Those are one down.
I'm just shocked that propane truck did not explode. All right, next one.
The next one is for as-directed emergency engineering design services. So our request for this is $250,000. This funds the design and repairs that we just mentioned. Ones that come from issues that are identified on our bridge and culvert inspection reports for, flags or hazardous conditions that are found, and allows us to get the design moving for some of these repairs. Some of the things that we talked about don't all require design. Majority of them do, and we're able to get those designed and addressed quickly with these ones.
Is there any specific plan with the existing dollars to be committed spent? I just know, at least the last several years of this, not to say it's a lot of money, but there have been between 23, 24, and 25 awards, there have been $0 spent.
You got that sheet, Bill?
Yeah, there's a lot of that's gonna be used, I think, road culverts, big one that popped up. So, doing some of the repairs. What there is, and this is the nice thing with some of these, is there's flexibility that we can use it for, not just bridge design when we get flagged, but also we can use it on the construction repair side. So we do ask for it, but it's kind of one of those things when we've had emergencies where we had to close a bridge and we're able to tap into this funding without affecting any other, funding lines in the park.
Okay.
You're right, we didn't use 24 or 25 yet.
Okay, next.
The next request is for large culvert and small bridge and pedestrian inspection program. So this is our inspection program where we have our small bridges and large culverts. So that's anything that's from 5 feet to 20 feet. And we have those inspected every 2 years. It's distributed over a 4-year program. The inspection of these structures follows the New York State Department of Transportation recommendations for frequency to ensure safety, and they're used to determine conditions and aid in prioritizing repair and replacements. The funding needs to be in place for 2027 so that inspections can begin immediately in 2028. Our existing contract extension goes through 2027, and it's going to use all of the existing funding that we have remaining. Without any additional funding, we won't be able to schedule the inspections that need to start in 2020.
So that's like a term agreement?
Yeah.
Who do you do it with?
Popley?
Popley was the
Yes,
last one
Popley.
I got it. And just on your sheet too, there were 2 VDOTs in there that showed significant net zero hours.
Oh, okay.
21155 and the 22060.
Okay, yeah,
Those
that
were zero though.
might have been, recently, because
Yeah.
I mean, I checked that,
No problem.
what, well, dude.
Our next request is for the road slide reconstruction at North Forest. We do have FEMA funding for this. The total cost is $1,790,000. The county share would be $946,250. FEMA funds have been obtained for this project. This is North Forest at Stall Road. We made this request also last year. We are requiring slope stabilization at a full depth and some highway reconstruction and drainage improvements in that area. It's anticipated that if we don't address this in the next 5 years, that we will at least have to close down 1 lane and eventually completely have to close it down. Design has begun. It's at 30% complete. This would be ready to be bid in late 2027 with construction in 2028.
Just remind me, I don't believe when we discussed this last year, though, that FEMA funding had been approved or had.
It had been,
It had.
yeah.
Flooding.
What's that?
When was the flooding?
It was,
So
The only
I was gonna
reason.
say, how far back is this? It was
yeah, this one goes
Pretty
pretty
neat.
far. Might be like 8 years ago. It's been in the works for a while. It was similar to the Tonawanda Creek where we noticed in the stream issues before the bank fell.
Our next request is a federal aid request for road construction for Rapids Road. The total cost is $7.5 million. The county share is only $375,000. This one's unique in that it's a 95-5 split, so we'd only be responsible for 5% of it. Rapids Road is from county line to Route 93 in Clarence and Newstead, and the federal aid funds obtained are from the roadway departure program. This includes shoulder widening, new pavement, and drainage improvements throughout that stretch. And the project is on the tip for Fed aid. That's it.
And the previously existing funding is just for the design work of this project?
That was the retaining wall.
Oh, okay, so it's a separate Rapids Road.
Yeah, it's another Rapids Road, and that one is, I think it was at the legislature.
So this
Towards
is,
the end of the session.
this is another one that would be bid all of 27, which means construction in all likelihood would not be until 28.
Yeah.
Is there drainage associated with this, or is this just a?
Drainage improvements, but not total drainage replacement.
What's the road score?
It is it's actually a higher road score. It's the drainage, I think, that is the actual issue. This is just over 4.5 miles long. Doesn't get a whole lot of traffic, but the drainage improvements are
And it's the width.
worse than the score
It's
and the
like-
widening.
Widening is probably the bigger part with departure. I think it's only like 16 feet in some areas, so it's 2 8-foot lanes.
I mean, cars are- I mean, it's not a lot of county money. To take advantage of the Fed, I get that, but this is not a heavily traveled road.
No, it's not, less
It's less than 1,000. Yeah.
So,
Any other questions? Okay,
Our next request is for on-call general civil survey and geotechnical services. The request is for $250,000.
that's number 14 because you removed 13.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, 14 was removed.
13.
Yeah, 13. So it was the first Zor Valley site one, they're no longer requested.
So the request for on-call general civil survey and geotechnical services for $250,000. The project's to allow retention of up to 2 firms for the provision of on-call general civil survey and geotechnical professional services. The current contract expires in 2027, and having our firms under an on-call contract allows us for a timely response to unanticipated events that typically recur on an irregular basis and require attention.
It was the whole contracts.
We currently have, is it Bergman and G?
Colliers now, yeah.
Is it? Okay,
It's
yeah,
GPI.
yeah. And I think the cycle before we had the same 2 also.
How much for that are we using annually?
So a lot of it's being used for the geotech issues in 26, so the 250,000 is still remaining this year.
Yeah, that's just Brent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Previous year's spending.
Any other questions?
Next request for dam compliance, rehabilitation, design funding for the Springville Dam. The total request is $1.2 million for the rehabilitation design for Springville Dam to address spillway capacity, stability, and incorporation of a low-level outlet and various other safety and compliance-related repairs. This is required to bring the dam back into compliance. Design could be completed in 2027 and progress through 2028 we had planned on using an incremental approach with multiple contract lettings to address the issues that are keeping us from being in compliance.
Now, I'm looking at the total cost. $69 million.
For the dam.
Construction.
I thought it was supposed to be 14.
Well, I got it here. It says 69. Maybe I'm looking at the, oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at all the preservation of large culverts.
Oh.
Yeah,
But there is going to be a substantial construction.
I think Springville's total, but that last agreement, pitch ladder, to get into compliance is probably gonna be in the neighborhood of $14 million to make it compliant. We have,
That was.
yeah.
that's, and then a lot of that too, has the sedimentation, that's about the size of the dirt we took out for the new stadium. 100,000 cubic yards behind that.
We have to put that somewhere, right?
Yeah, because it could have radioactive isotopes with what's upstream. I believe that agreement's all we're out of, right, with
Yes.
DEC
Yeah.
and Army Corps.
John.
It's something to do with the Corps of Engineers. This goes back, what, about 15 years?
Correct, well, yeah, it goes back to when we, I think it's more than 15
We
years.
used to meet Springville with the Corps.
Yes.
Yeah. The Corps is state, and that's.
The Corps was federal, state DEC. Corps had originally designed that when we were gonna do the fish ladder. When they designed it, they ran the calculations wrong. And there would be significant downstream flooding on the Sac Nation and parcels, I think, along. We would have taken I think a total of 17 parcels
Something like that.
downstream of the dam if they went through. So the process now is to scuttle that, but just keep the dam at the same height so we don't lose any of that downstream funding. Other alternatives were looked at, building a brand new dam in front of it, deconstructing that one behind it, but it's just the cost. We still have open channels with DEC, been asking for any assistance with DEC funding, especially with what's happening at the demonstration project, if we can.
I got more than $1 billion approved.
Right. We haven't found a way to access that money that's been approved in New York State DEC. I think, Dan, you had multiple conversations with the commissioner too.
Yeah, I think there's multiple priorities at the state. The fisheries people want to see a dam done with a fish passage, and that means lowering the head quite a bit, and that adds a lot of cost and downstream sedimentation. So the answer you get sometimes depends on who you talk to.
We want to protect the drought trout upstream from being devoured by the fish, Lake Erie.
I think it's more it's all fishing. Upstream is the headwaters that start at Lime Lake.
Yeah.
It's the lamprey eels that hitch on that come upstream from the lake and swim all the way up the Cattaraugus. And that's their concern. If the dam is lowered, those lamprey could actually jump that high and get through and destroy the sport fish.
Yeah. The money the Corps had was actually great for fisheries money to open up the upper reaches for fishing. And not so much flood control downstream, it was the fishing upstream.
To your point, John, some were concerned about that fish ladder bringing steel that up farther and taking over the brown trout populations upstream of that. But the real issue became taking over properties, which we weren't in a position to do. Sediment, which going downstream could be a huge problem. Good luck with the sedimentation and dealing with that sediment behind the stream head. And the cost, the cost escalated greatly, and the design cost and then property acquisition was in a position to do that. So, I think our plan is to, right now, just fix the issues that hazard dam.
Is there any risk of the dam breaking? Or is it just, this is what they want us to do?
Through the inspection, there are failures. We don't have control of all the gates when we have high water situations. So that hydraulic pressure on the back, the doghouse is there, the AC. There is a scour underneath in some areas where the power generation was. Through the inspection reports, because it does have to be inspected, and being a high hazard dam, there are concerns for dam integrity. That could be very conservative estimates, but there are, and naturally with not having all that sediment behind it, if we were to open it, that sediment would flow down with no protective measures. If we did open those, let water flow through, catch some of that sedimentation.
So is the Army Corps just basically walked away from this project?
Pretty much, yeah. I think we started this project in 2017 with the agreements.
Yeah, the fisheries money was actually EPA, Great Lakes money that the Corps was administering. And there was not enough progress on the project, so they used that money elsewhere.
All right, next one.
The next request is for the preservation of large culverts for construction. This is a continuous request that we come with every year. The request for 2027 is $10,600,000. It's a large-scale program to replace our large culverts and small bridges throughout the county. Potential culverts for 2027 would be ones that are on Fedek Road, Fletcher, Trevitt, West Main Street. We've got a long list. We've got 25% of our large culvert inventory that are reaching the end of their life. And we're requesting this amount because it's what we feel we could accomplish in any given year when it comes to the construction funding. We typically bid these in culvert groups, putting a few of them together at a time to work on replacing the ones that are 25% of our inventory that needs replacement.
What 5 culverts, it says, currently in design with this, with the $10.6 million cover construction for those 5 culverts?
What was the last part you said?
That in your description, it says 5 large culverts are currently in design for replacement. Additional RP for design of 10 culverts is being issued. in early 2026, what would 10,600,000 get you? And would it cover the 5 culverts that are currently in design?
It would cover, I mean, I think we'd be able to do almost 10 is what we had discussed, given the cost of some of them. Some of them are less than $1 million, some of them are over $1 million. But ideally with 10, you know, our goal is to be able to replace around 10 every year.
So if this was to be approved, you would have, by the time that the capital budget was approved of 2027, you consider you have design, you would basically do once again bid 27, construction 28.
Or, yeah, we could bid at the end of 27.
Which again, a lot of them, if it's precast, we want to fit them in the fall. So
And
they're
the
ready for
pictures you see up there, some of there's moving scales, that's why it's not clear as to exactly how many we could do. As FEMA maps are updated with floodplains, we have, New York State DEC is now saying they want, clear span culverts, which are really small bridges. So a culvert that would have been $500,000 to $700,000 can become $1.5 million. So now you have to build head walls, and you can't have any obstructions in the stream, even though they were there beforehand. We used to put natural bottoms in the culvert pipe like on the bottom. They don't want that anymore, so they want to have free access to the whole channel. It's really.
Whose requirement is that?
New York State DEC.
And it's an actual requirement?
Yes, we're actually in the process with New York State DOT Albany, working to try and get conversations with the DEC commissioners, because it's not just a problem for us, the farmers now that have these small culverts that are in streams to traverse some of their fields, the dairy farms, are getting fined for having these culverts in place. So soil and water districts are becoming much more active to help the farmers out. Become a very big problem. Aquatic life is trumped highway safety.
Any other questions? Next.
Bridge and culvert preservation, this is design funding. We're requesting $750,000. This is designed for federal aid bridge preservation projects or capital culvert projects. Bridge work will include but not be limited to bridge deck repairs, overlays, deck sealing, joint bearing replacement, and culverts that need repairs or replacements. This is in the design phase for bridge maintenance projects that are currently on the tip. And there is no state or federal money available for the design phase of these project types.
How
So
many
this is
bridges
some,
and culverts would you get on the $750,000 design?
10 culverts and I'm not trying to see how many bridges. We definitely would get about 10 culverts this fall.
Okay.
our next request is for preservation of roads, general road design program. The request is for $2.5 million for 2027. This is for design of one or more roads or retaining walls or supporting roads, depending on what funding we receive. Some of the candidates include Ransom Road from Main to Stage, Eggert, Worley from Transit to Harris Hill, Waverly or any other county road, French from Union to Transit. These 2.5 would allow us, depending on the project, we wouldn't be able to accomplish all of these, but would give us, I don't know, how many do you think with the 2.5?
Just looking back, we had
Probably do 3 or 4, so we do the 2.5.
And then the ultimate construction associated with any of these designs, those would be 100% local share.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm a little confused. It's $2.5 million. This is design, correct?
Yeah,
So you're saying only do one or more? So you're gonna spend $2.5 million to design a road?
no, we could probably do 3.
3 roads.
Yeah.
We spent, just for instance, $500,000 for the culvert Egger design. Dodge, that's out now. That was about $299,000. And These are all roads that are in the 5 to 6 category. So they can, oh, oh, Buffalo Road, that's the one. Down by Seneca,
Oh, yeah.
extension of Seneca Street, Buffalo Road in front of Knox Farms. That needs still reconstruction. Coming out of the circle in East Aurora to Bowen Road, I think it's just under a mile.
Any other questions?
The next request is for road slide construction funding for Zor Valley Road, what we are calling Site 2. This is a request for $500,000. The rehabilitation is to address road slides caused by subsurface movement and stream bank erosion. This is something that we continuously face on this road. Site 2 is located about just more than half a mile over from North Otto Road. And due to the continued movements, there's regular maintenance that's required. We need a longer term repair to fix it and keep the road stable, to keep from being shut down.
I will reiterate what I said in the past. This makes no sense to continue to invest millions of dollars in Zor Valley on a road that is built on shifting land. It should be closed. I don't know, is this still your district, John, or is this legislative Rodrigo?
Historically, the whole road goes like this.
It was. It's just, this, for those who have never participated, we've had Zor Valley in every discussion. And the reason is the land the road is built on is not stable. It's built next to the creek. So it constantly needs repair. And it's a lot of money for a road that doesn't get a whole lot of cars. And I think it's just basically used by a few farmers for land that they have. My opinion.
What would happen if it was closed?
There's a couple properties that, and homes that are full year-round facilities in that. Shank, I think the tree farm was the Shackles.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest.
Circles are down there.
This year, the East Otto Road Bridge gets used quite a bit because that gets you in McCat County. I mean, quite a bit for their speaking in 500 cars. I think it's that much.
Any other questions or comments? Okay,
Our next request is for capital right-of-way funding, for 2027 for $100,000. This right-of-way, this is for right-of-way acquisitions, appraisals, by fee or easement approved by the county attorney to facilitate various road, bridge, culvert, dam, or other projects, including maintenance and preservation projects. It's necessary at times to acquire right-of-way for various projects that we undertake to improve, maintain, and repair the road. This often happens with some of our bridge projects where we need take a little bit of right-of-way to complete, the replacement of it, and something that pops up through lots of our projects.
okay.
Our next request is for preservation of roads, for construction funding for Goodrich and Clarence Center. The total request is $6.4 million. This is for the rehabilitation of Goodrich Road, which has a road score of 6, and that's about a 0.42 mile distance. It sees 7,692 cars a day. And Clarence Center, which has a road score of 7 to 8 and is 0.60 miles from start to finish there. This is in Clarence Center. The road scores sound like they're a little high. The dominating issue in this area is the drainage that needs to be replaced. This project would also include obviously paving, but also total curb replacement in this area. The drainage is failing on both of those roadways, and construction is necessary to improve road conditions for traveler safety and for drainage improvements.
The question I have is in relation to, we've been doing a lot, it seems like, of complete reconstruction with drainage. And I'm just wondering, can these roads be repaired without drainage, which would easily knock off millions?
More than likely not, it's all enclosed drainage. This is particularly in a hamlet, so we couldn't put open ditches in there. The curbing, this goes with like French Road, all the others, probably the drainage dates back in the 60s, if not even the 50s, and it's metal CNT pipe. The drainage, stormwater issues, but also the tie-ins that come from roof leaders, homes.
Are we seeing road collapses or are we just seeing flooding?
We're seeing on top, and fortunately in the covered areas, we're getting a lot of, not in the roadway, but on adjacent to the road, parallel to the road, sinkholes due to the winter, especially with the deluge of water that we've been getting in some of these rainstorms that become more and more apparent. The district has to go out and try to address it because they're pretty good size sinkholes.
The sinkholes on the road or the sinkholes on the
On the shoulders, off the shoulder where the drainage is. So it could affect the roadway if it goes out in further.
Any other questions?
Our next request is for capital bridge design funding in the amount of $500,000 for 2027. This is for the design of our capital bridge replacement program or rehabilitation projects. These are bridges that we don't get the benefit of state or federal aid and would start in early 2027 for design and bidding in 2028 with construction in 2029 for this design funding. We do have 284 highway bridges, and some of the bridges that would be designed are mentioned in the next request, which would be Warner Gulf Road and Youngs Road and road over Ellicott Creek, Warner Gulf Road, and there, and Youngs.
What is the difference between capital bridge design and the preservation of or bridge and culvert preservation design? Both of them are noted.
So these are our bridges. So the culvert ones are the ones that are a shorter span. These are our capital larger bridges that get a full replacement.
Okay, so the bridge and culvert preservation design is really just for culverts, not necessarily.
Or small bridges.
Or small bridges.
Yeah.
So we're talking that,
It's a technical term, but it's an important one because that's what the state and feds use to differentiate between it. Okay. The culverts, the large culverts can go from 5 to 20 feet, which is really a bridge, anything greater than 5 feet. This here is for bridges greater than 20 feet.
I see. Okay, so the capital is for the larger ones.
Also, to note, these are bridges that are considered off system, so they're not eligible for state and federal aid.
Well, the description for the bridge and culvert preservation design also indicates that there is no state or federal money in that.
Mhm.
That's why, that's the point. I mean, obviously, if they're eligible for state or federal aid, they go into one bucket. It was just the differentiation between these two that had no state or federal aid. That's what I think.
Okay, understood.
so the next request is for preservation of bridges at multiple locations. This request is for $5 million. Again, these are ones that don't get the benefit of state or federal aid. Bridges like Warner Gulf Road over Gears Gulf and Youngs Road Bridge over the branch to Ellicott Creek are included, as well as any other bridge that would be identified. They're reaching the end of their life cycle based on their condition rating or flags that they've received that go into the inspection rating, and they need to be funded for construction when we don't have federal or state aid available. So the 5 million, it probably covered the two that are listed, and also the design funding would design for both.
So this is just for construction.
This is just for
Have
construction.
we already designed these bridges? No?
No, this would be, so the first request for the capital bridge design for that 500,000, they would be designed next year, or they would be to complete design and then bid out at the end of 2027 for those two.
Well, I'm confused. If we're borrowing money to do design work in 27, why would we borrow money to do construction, which we know would not even start until late 28, maybe even 29?
Well, these would have to be bid in 2027.
It's just the timing of where it is in the fiscal year,
Mhm.
to hit the end of the fiscal year. Because we can't bid it without the money being in there. These are late.
So we'd have to approve,
We have to really
the
approve.
design would be done so that they could actually start construction in
Yeah.
28.
28.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Our next request is for the preservation of roads and construction funding for Dodge Road. The total request is $7,670,000 for the rehabilitation of Dodge Road. This is scored between roads grow 5 and 6. It's 2.62 miles. It sees over 10,000 vehicles per day, and it's from Transit to Hopkins in Amherst. The project includes pavement resurfacing, total drainage replacement, shoulder widening, and updated ADA sidewalk ramps throughout the project. This is, the pavement seeing distress and pavement failure. The drainage certainly needs to be replaced and is failing, and construction is necessary to improve these conditions. The design phase is going to be complete this year. It would be a phased project, so phase 1 construction, which we're requesting the full amount for, would be bid in 2027.
Can you confirm how you ranked these? Because you have this and the next one is 24 and 25 is the lowest rank. So, but it's a big project. Larger.
These are both projects that in previous years kind of gets on that sprawl topic, especially to Amherst and developing some rural land. These are all pretty much classified as rural roads, but they're huge developments that they want, like the tally builders and some of the like to come in and put in monster houses. So on our ranking, with the other stuff, honestly, that goes before, it's much more important to us.
Yeah.
The road functionally works, just doesn't meet the needs of some of those larger homes. Sidewalks.
And this would do what?
This here, this will widen that road. Again, these are probably 22 10-foot lanes and no shoulders. This will put enclosed drainage. I think it goes to 26-foot wide, so it'll be 2 11-foot lanes plus a 4-foot shoulder.
What if we just did a mill and overlay?
We can do that.
And then how much would that cost?
About 500,000 a mile, so a fraction of like all the roads.
Yeah.
$2 million as opposed to $7 million in total reconstruction.
But it would have to maintain the same width, right?
Which is something that we don't have a problem with. It's
No.
the people who
Yeah.
live there. And
Correct. We had some pressure. Both of these roads are in the town of Amherst. We haven't had this stuff with the new supervisor, but the previous administration had pressure on us to try and upgrade these roads. But that's every time.
But this road is capable of doing a mill and overlay.
I believe so. I haven't been on
Yeah.
Dodge. Dodge definitely. New Road might be a different story, just because of soil conditions up on the north end of New Road near Tonawanda Creek.
Well, we already started doing the widening.
We did phase 1.
Yeah.
All right. A new road.
Okay, our last one is preservation of roads, construction for New Road. We've obviously completed phase 1 of New Road. This is for phase 2. There is a third phase of New Road based on costs here. Phase 1 was from Dodge to Smith. Phase 2, which this request is for, is from Smith to 1.2 miles north of Smith and Amherst. It would include widening the shoulders and closing the drainage, pavement, mill and overlay. This has got a road score of 6. It sees 3,875 cars a day and would be 1.2 miles long for this request. It has narrow shoulders, and they're requesting that the ditches be in.
Who's requesting?
Timers.
Is the road capable, once again, being milled over later? Is this one that might have?
This one is in, phase 2 is in design and would be ready for bid in 2027. I believe it could be just overlaid, but I don't even know if it's the pavement condition that was really driving.
I think this was more, 3 or 4 years ago, they were trying to get the developers to commit to putting sidewalks in.
Correct.
If you put the sidewalks in, that affects the road.
But this developer didn't put the sidewalks.
Correct.
And then they wanted the county to put the sidewalks in, which we don't put sidewalks.
Right. You never think that. I mean, if we could mill it, overlay it, we could definitely do a recycle, cold recycle. And it's been successful on a lot of those, unstable, like subterranean, conditions. Tell you what, comes to road, but we're not touched for 10 years.
My general view is I don't see why we'd be spending upwards of $7 or $10 million over multiple phases just because the town wants us to do it.
Right.
If they want it, they could take it over and do it themselves.
100% agree.
Yeah, so this total, I mean, with the 3 phases, it'd be total of 21 million.
What's the third phase? It's a short section.
Yeah, the 3rd phase is from the remaining, that 1.2 north of Smith, going to the county line.
And that's based on future development, not current development or anything. Those are homes, not businesses, right?
Any questions regarding this one? Or any of the other projects? Hearing none, we are completed for highways. If there are any members of the public here in person or on video conference who would like to make a comment, now is the time.
Not seen this level.
Do not seem to have any comments from those on the line. With that, our next meeting will be next. I think the date was wrong. It says Monday, June 26th, should be the 29th. And we'll hear from quite a few: DA, Central Police Services, Homeland Security, Real Property, Social Services, and Youth Services. There's no further business today. I entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. A motion from Karen Meyer, second. Second from Leader Mills. All in favor, signify by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.